Bills Mafia, what's going on? It's Dave Myers, owner and founder of Built in Buffalo. Today, I am joined by my guy, Peter DiBiase. Happy Thanksgiving, post-Thanksgiving weekend to you, Peter DiBiase. And also, it's a little bit later in the day, but happy Victory Monday to you. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. We were talking off air how good the Thanksgiving games were, the 3 games that were on Thanksgiving, and lucky enough they were great because there's some years you get some duds, and it stinks when there's duds, when there's nothing else to watch football-wise. So that was great. But yeah, Victory Monday. I know the Bills had a nice little bit of a roller coaster kind of victory yesterday, not in the sense of the final score, but more on how they played, especially offensively. But like I always say, and I think you always say this, anytime you win a game in the NFL, you kind of have to you chalk it up as a win and you move on. There's no style point. It's not college football. But yeah, obviously it was definitely an up and down game. But after the Houston loss, I think any type of win was needed.
So what was your expectations? The Bills had 10 days off, obviously coming off that dud against the Texans where Josh Allen was hit, I believe, 12 or 13 times, was sacked, like seemingly on every drive. What were your expectations going into yesterday's game as far as, all right, Spencer Brown's out. All right, Deion Dawkins is out. Joshua Palmer's out. Dalton Kincaid's out. You know, what are we going to do? Obviously, we all know about the injuries on the defensive side. So what were your expectations going into yesterday's game? And then we'll kind of run through the game.
I was kind of afraid we were kind of going to get a Houston 2.0 in the sense offensively they're going to struggle to pass the ball, and if the running game wasn't working, which it did work, but if it wasn't going to work, you were going to have a Houston type of game where the team sells out for the run, the Bills struggle to run the ball, and then Josh Allen is either running for his life, holding the ball too long, while no one else is getting open down the field. He wasn't running for his life. He wasn't overly pressured, but there were still not a lot of people open, mainly receivers, open downfield. So it was a little bit like the Houston game. It's just Allen was only sacked 0 times, so he was not sacked. And they ran the ball really well. So, but yeah, heading into the game, I was like, this is a problem because I thought, like you mentioned, Dawkins and Brown both being out, Allen not being able to protect himself, they were going to struggle through there. And they struggled through there once again, but it was a little bit of a different style of game. And credit to the Bills, offensively, they were able to run the ball and be efficient enough to run the ball to obviously lead to a victory. But I was afraid of what this game was going to be. And we kind of got a 2.0 of the passing game that we saw against Houston, minus the pressures on Josh.
Yeah, I think there was a concerted effort by not just Joe Brady, but like we were talking earlier, like Aaron Kromer, this is a nice shout out to him because you got 2 backup tackles that are getting first team snaps for an entire game. So it was nice to see the approach from Joe Brady to say, hey, if we can get this running game going, we can control some clock and we don't need to be in 3rd and long, which 3rd and 7+ for the Bills has been the
disaster
this season.
Disaster.
It's been nobody's open to get to 7+ yards. And it seems like Josh just doesn't have time or patience or doesn't trust what he's seen on those 3rd and longs. So take me through the first part of the game for you, because I think you were probably like a lot of Bills fans were watching that first half, seeing Josh Allen throw an interception, seeing James Cook have a fumble. And I've said this entire season, we couldn't rest on the fact that this team was historically good protecting the football last year. And I don't think that was ever going to be duplicated no matter how they executed this offense. That's just something that I feel like there's no way you can have 8 turnovers in an entire season. Like that was something that I feel like we all kind of knew that they were going to regress in that area. But seeing how the game started when Josh threw that interception and then you look to the left and he's got 2 guys open, they may not have gotten the first down, but they were open. Like they had 4 or 5 yards separation. They were open. They were behind the sticks, but they were open. And then he throws the pick. And then the James Cook fumble, I feel like at that point I was like, oh, this is going to be one of these games where the Bills can't get out of their own ways. They had already had a few penalties up to that point on offense that just were just nonsensical penalties. So take me through your thought process as this game's progressing to the half where it seems like the Bills just can't do anything. They're punting. They were moving the ball a little bit, but then obviously they shot themselves in the foot a couple times with turnovers. But take me through the first part of your game and what your thoughts were there and what you saw there.
The Bills offensively are not good enough to be this much of a turnover team. And I agree with you in the sense that last year their turnovers was not going to be, it was going to be hard to do that again, right? It was almost going to be virtually impossible to replicate what we saw last year with this Bills offense in the sense of their turnovers. But this team is not efficient enough passing the ball to be this much of a turnover team, right? And we saw 2 turnovers to start the game. You mentioned the Gabe Davis one. Like, that was a twofold issue. That was a bad pass by Allen, but it was also Gabe Davis not running, like not winning his route.
Right.
Like, sometimes you have to trust guys to win their route. Gabe doesn't win his route. And you mentioned this a minute ago, Dave. It goes back to Josh not trusting guys down the field.
Right.
Because, look, could Josh have made a better play? Yeah, 100%. But Gabe also is trusted. You trust your receivers to win their routes. Gabe Davis did not win his route on that slant pass. He was beaten to the ball, and he was beaten to the spot by the DB. Allen doesn't trust his receivers for the rest of the game. It kind of goes back to that point of not trusting receivers. And then you go to the James Cook fumble, and you're like, oh, boy. Because that James Cook fumble was James Cook fumbled by himself. That was a self fumble. He needed the ball out of his own hands, and then had a chance to get back on the ball, and ended up not getting back on the ball, and Pittsburgh gets the ball. So, yes, I was thinking – I tweeted, and I sometimes angrily tweet, but I was right, in my opinion, that this in the first half that the Bills' offense was unwatchable. Like, it was virtually unwatchable. And they were. They had 3 points. And, Dave, I don't know if you mentioned it, but they had a chance to get 7 at the end of the first half, and there's a false start on the right side of the O-line.
Yeah.
Like, it was just – and that's not a turnover, but that's the third major mistake that we had. And then also early in the game, before 2 different times they were at midfield, and Alec Anderson had false starts that derailed the Bills' offense. And you mentioned it when they're getting 3rd and 7. You can mention it when it's a first down and they have a holding or a false start. This Bills' offense, until proven otherwise, cannot get behind the sticks whatsoever. I'm not saying every play has to be 5 yards, but it can't be 1st and 10 to 1st and 15. It just can't. This Bills' offense is not good enough to be behind the sticks. They were multiple times because of Alec Anderson. They had a false start on the right side that led to them not having a chance to get 7. They instead get 3. The James Cook fumble and the Josh Allen interception. And I think the broadcast mentioned this, McDermott mentioned this at his going into the locker room. The Bills' offense was moving the ball.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying they were the offense from last year when they were humming, because they were not humming, but it wasn't like they were stalling out. But when they got to around midfield, they stalled out. Cook fumble, Allen interception, 2 Alec Anderson false starts, and then by the goal line, another false start. So if you're going to take a silver lining from that first half, you're like, we were moving the ball offensively. That's a plus. But then they were biting themselves in the ass by doing turnovers and false starts. So, going into halftime, I was like, this defense needs to kind of get a turnover. They ended up getting a turnover. I thought it was Houston all over again. And it felt like Houston all over again, minus the sacks.
Yeah, and the biggest takeaway to me, like you said, that last drive where they settled for a field goal, it's like against better teams, you can't do that. You can't have the ball as long as you have the ball for, I think that drive was 16 plays, if I'm not mistaken, 15 or 16 plays. It was long. It was like
16 plays for 60 yards, 7 minutes and 18 seconds.
Yeah, you can't have those drives against, put it this way, you can't be in the postseason and have a 16-play, 7-minute drive end up in a false start penalty on one of your tackles. I understand Alec Anderson he's not a starter, and this was his first game starting, and he's getting more reps and he's getting acclimated and things like that. But you can't have a 4th and 3 in a critical situation, which is basically a 2-minute situation, and you settle for a field goal because you're not going to go for it on 4th and 8. You're just not. And you could tell Allen was frustrated. You could tell that Josh was like, "Oh, come on, we had some momentum here. We finally were able to sustain a drive where we weren't giving ourselves self-inflicted wounds. We get right down in next to the goal line, and here we are backing ourselves up." And whatever they did at halftime, as far as coach speak, right? If it was McDermott, if it was, Joe Brady, if it was Aaron Kromer, whoever it was, the offensive line got their shit together in the second half. And coming out, the way they did was unfortunate what happened to Aaron Rodgers, but I'm not going to say I'm mad at it with the sack with Joey Bosa. So let's get in. Yeah, let's get into the second half and kind of what you saw the Bills do. I think the defense played well in the first half. I mean, they gave up the ball in that short field for that touchdown, so you can't really blame them for too much. I mean, they kept the Bills in the game for the first half. So tell me what you saw in the second half, not just defensively but offensively, and how you saw things kind of change and the Bills kind of get, the motivation and all that stuff to try to push the ball down the field with the ground game.
Well, even in the first half, if you give up 7 points and a half in the NFL game, like that's a good half defensively, right? Like you do that twice, you give up 14 points, you should virtually win every single NFL game you play in if you're giving up a single touchdown per half. 100%. So they give up a touchdown. It was a short field. It happens, right? NFL teams score points. It happens. But second half, they were terrific. And I thought, and obviously Rodgers comes out, Mason Rudolph comes in, overshoots his receiver, Christian Benford makes a pick, right? So that was a little bit of pressure. That was also a little bit of Mason Rudolph being not a good NFL quarterback.
Right.
But the Bills did put him in a spot where he had to throw the ball, so credit to the Bills defense. But I think we actually saw in the second half, and I think the Bills' pressure rate's been very good this year. I know people talking about Rousseau's pressure rate heading into this game. It's been very good, but the story of Groot's kind of career is pressure rate really good, top 20 pressure rate kind of guy. Sack numbers just aren't there, right, when it comes to his total numbers. So he's good at getting after the quarterback, not good at finishing the play. But I thought he was good. The pressure was good. I know the Joey Bosa made a great play. But I was talking to one of my friends I was watching the game with, who's a Bills fan at halftime, like the defense needs to make a play. I didn't say they needed to scoop and score a touchdown or have a pick six, but they needed to get a short field for this offense. And, well, they took it to one step better than that, and Bosa great pressure. Obviously, Benford picks it up, and then obviously they get the interception on Mason Rudolph. That leads to more points, and then that was basically it. And then you also got to factor in at 16. Was it 16-7 or 9? When did Groot get the fourth down stop? Was it 16-7? No,
I think it was 20. Was it 23?
It was 23-7. Yes.
Yeah.
It was 23-7.
Yeah, it was fourth and goal, or was it
fourth and 2? Yeah. Fourth and 1 or fourth and 2. And Groot makes a great play.
Yeah, and the Steelers lined up their 320-pound tight end in the backfield, and they don't even go to the direction where he's blocking.
No, I was watching the game, and I was sitting with my friend, and there was 3 huge guys on the right side. I'm like, well, if they go that way, we're screwed. That's a touchdown, or that's a first down. They don't go that way. They go left or up the middle, and Groot makes a great play. And obviously that was the icing on the cake. So
if you see Aaron, and I don't mean to keep cutting you off, but if you see Aaron Rodgers in the backfield, after the play, he's like, because he was supposed to go that way. So I think there was just a lot of stuff that Aaron Rodgers said throughout the week about practice was just bad. And guys were showing up to film, study, and like he said, there was a couple passes that he threw where the receivers just took the wrong routes. There was a couple run plays that they ran where they went to the wrong gap, and it was like that. How
about that one touchdown pass, or not touchdown pass, when he threw it into the middle of the end zone, and the receiver was supposed to go left on a post and went right. Yeah. And the guy was just there wasn't even a Bills defender. There was no one in the vicinity of the area. They did a great job of getting after the quarterback. Obviously, Rodgers finished with a 65 rating, a 6.2 QBR. So they made Rodgers a hell back there. And I think pass defense, they were very good. Run defense was great. And this is a guy you've talked about, and we talked about on the show. Shaq Thompson is really good in the run defense. I don't know if he's an every down linebacker because I don't know how versatile he is in the pass game because of just his age and where he is in the pass defense. And I think Dorian Williams is probably a better pass defender than Shaq Thompson is. But Shaq Thompson's terrific in the run game, like terrific. And the Steelers have a solid run game with Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell. It's not Saquon Barkley, but they run the ball pretty well. They're a solid running team. They clipped 3.2 yards per carry on 18 carries for 58 yards. So the Bills' rush defense, which has been very suspect, was really good. And I woke up this morning and I saw that the Bills were number 1 in pass defense in yards per game allowed, which shocked me. So credit to the Bills' pass defense. But yeah, going back to the holistic of the second half, they got after Rodgers. Obviously, Rodgers gets injured on a normal NFL play. Mason Rudolph comes in, and you do exactly what you're supposed to do when a backup quarterback comes in.
Yeah.
You put him in obvious passing downs, which he did, and it led to an interception. So the Bills probably had, if not probably their best defensive half of the season. It was terrific, and it gave the offense life. Obviously, they got themselves 7 points, but I think it gave the offense a little bit of like, okay, it gave them a little bit of life that their defense was playing that well on the other side of the ball.
Now, you talk about the run defense, and I have kind of a theory. Now, we all know about the injuries to the Bills' defensive line with Michael Hoyt at Oliver. Obviously, 𝐷𝐴QUAN was out for a little bit. So, obviously, the Bills have been trying to improve this defensive line. That was their main goal all offseason. So, the games where the Bills gave up huge amounts of yards on the ground, you know who didn't play? Take a guess at who didn't play. He's not a defensive lineman.
Terrell Bernard?
Nope. Shaq Thompson.
Oh, you're saying who didn't play before?
Who didn't play in the games where the Bills gave up those massive amounts?
I thought you were asking who didn't play yesterday.
No. So I'm not saying that Shaq Thompson's the answer to the run defense. I'm just saying that I feel like Terrell Bernard has been playing either injured or I don't know if he's regressed or if there's just something else going on.
Combination of both, because we've talked about a couple of times him chasing down guys, and he's like, looks like he's hobbling with a cane trying to chase down these guys if some guy goes by him.
And to me, it's not even that. It's more of I watch him take really bad angles at run plays. And he just always seems to either choose the wrong gap or he's just blown up at the line. He's not in the right position to make the tackle. And look, I'm not an X's and O's expert, but when you constantly see guys take bad angles, I don't know if that's the defensive line just not being able to penetrate and win their battles up front, or if he's not seeing whatever's happening right after the ball is snapped. He's not anticipating what's happening. And I mean, yesterday there was a huge thing that came out about Shaq Thompson having to be called upon during a meeting on Friday, and he's got up and spoke in front of the team and kind of was like, look, we need to go and win. We need to go win our one-on-ones. We need to win our battles, and we need to go and execute. We can't be doing this anymore. And it was kind of a running joke on Twitter because he sat down and had an interview about, the first question he was asked is, how do you stop the run? And everybody was laughing at him. Ha, the Bills don't stop the run. They can't stop the run. Why are you asking, a 30-plus-year-old linebacker on the end of a one-year deal who's probably not going to be here next year, who's been injured in and out of the lineup, how to stop the run? And his answer was like, we just need to execute. We need to man up and execute. And it was nice to see that actually come to fruition yesterday, where he actually, was a huge contributor. I think he was the highest graded Bills defensive player from PFF. And it was very nice to see that. And hopefully he can stay healthy, and hopefully he can stay on the field and kind of let Bernard heal. If we're going to get this kind of production from Shaq Thompson, let Bernard heal. Don't rush him back and kind of, push this thing down the road. But all right, let's talk about the Bills offense. Obviously, the Bills ran the ball 50 plus times yesterday. I can't remember a time where I would sit here and tell you that the Bills ran the ball 50 times yesterday. It's nice because that typically means the Bills controlled the clock and won the game. So tell me what you saw in the run game. TJ Watt doesn't ever want to play the Bills again. I don't ever think his comments saying, I can't believe this team ran the same play over and over and over and over, and it worked every single time. So kind of walk me through what you were thinking once you were watching this game. And, it didn't matter if it was James Cook. It didn't matter if it was Ray Davis. Even Ty Johnson sprinkled in there a little bit. What's your thoughts on the Bills' run game yesterday?
Well, for TJ Watt, that's more of an indictment on your own defense and defensive line 100%. Than the Bills. If they're going to keep running the same play over and over again, maybe make an adjustment, I guess. That's kind of – and TJ Watt's a future NFL Hall of Famer. So
stack the box, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, I would stack the box against this Bills passing game right now. They have to run the ball to win this game, win the games at this point, because they're a running team with Josh Allen at quarterback, which is kind of a crazy statement, but they are a running team. Like Cook had 144 yards and he rushed for under 5 yards per carry, but he was a volume running back. And someone that we have not seen because he had 44 rushing yards heading into yesterday's game, which was Ray Davis. Yeah. And we saw Ray Davis against Tampa, and we saw Ray Davis against Houston become very impactful in the kick return game. Like, very impactful. He was great. Yeah. Obviously, good against Tampa. And then against Houston, he had a kick return for a touchdown, right? So he was impactful in the kick return game. And then you get him involved in the running game with 9 carries for 62 yards at a 6.9 yards per clip on 9 carries. Use him, because I think he's a very talented running back. And we saw in year 1 with Ray Davis how, look, obviously James Cook's your number 1 running back. He's second in the National Football League in rushing yards, and he's not that far behind Jonathan Taylor at the moment. So, like, you're going to obviously use James Cook. He's going to be your volume running back, as he should be. But Ray Davis is good enough to get enough 5 to 10 carries a game. Like, I think Ray Davis is good enough to do that in this offense. And I think we saw yesterday. So, credit. Look, Joe Brady deserves a ton of blame, and I'm going to continue giving Joe Brady a ton of criticism until this passing game is fixed. Also, Brandon Beane as well, until this passing game is fixed. But credit to Joe Brady for making an adjustment in the running game and giving Ray Davis carries. But TJ Watt's right. They ran the same kind of style of run. It was a lot of, I'm going to butcher this, but it was a lot of like kind of the cutback run by Cook. Like, he would start up the middle and he would cut to the right. When I play Madden, they call it HB counter. It's like a counter run. Like, you start here and you go that way. It doesn't work in Madden because it takes too freaking long to run, and no one likes to block in video games. But in the NFL, when someone's blocking, Torrance on the right side and Alec Anderson on the right side, it works. They kept running the same kind of counter, kind of up the middle, kicks it out to the right, and Cook's speed is good enough to get to the sideline and beat a defender to the sideline and obviously string it upfield. So we saw him do that a ton of times. But their running offense, obviously they're going to have to change it up a little because it's on tape now what they did. So obviously heading into Cincinnati against Cincinnati on Sunday, you have to make adjustments because Cincinnati's going to be ready for the run. Cincinnati's defense is also not good. But Dave, like, I don't know if 51 carries a game is sustainable for this offense if you want to continue to win football games, but they seem like they're just going to have to keep running the ball until this passing game, if it ever gets fixed.
This is, and I said this yesterday to a friend of mine. I said, I'm frustrated with Joe Brady more today than I was coming into this game. And he's like, dude, the offense is playing great. I'm like, that's my point. Like, why is there certain times of the season this year where he figures out what is the best course of action for that game? But then when we see games against teams that have bad secondaries or games against teams that aren't good against the run, he doesn't pick the right formula. Yes, it worked yesterday. And like you said, I don't think that it's sustainable to run the ball 50 times. Obviously, you're going to have teams that are better at stopping the run. Obviously, there's going to be games when your offensive line's just not dominating the way that the Bills did yesterday, even with 2 backup tackles in. But I do feel like there is a formula that can be had from that game. I feel like it doesn't need to be 30 carries for James Cook. I feel like that was done yesterday because it was working so well. I feel like we're getting to the part of the season where you're going to want to have him as fresh as possible, right? So I think with them sprinkling in Ray Davis, yes, Cook probably needed some rest because he ran the ball so much. But I think, like you said, if you want to run James Cook 20 times and run Ray Davis 5-10 times, or Cook 25 times, whatever you want to do, I feel like that's a good recipe for success. And as well as getting those guys involved in the pass game, because it was very effective when Josh seemingly all of a sudden figured out read 1, read 2, read 3. Where's Cook? Oh, he's over there. Let me just throw it to him. And it seemed like that's something that Josh has stopped doing this year. And it was nice to see yesterday that he realized, okay, James Cook is Big Jimbo is right over there. I'm just going to get it to him, first down. And then they obviously involve Ty Johnson like they usually do in Ray Davis a little bit in the pass game. So to me, going forward, I understand this Bengals team is not a great defensive team, but they do have Joe Burrow back, right? Jamar Chase is back. And I think T. Higgins, I'm not sure if he's slated to come back or not for this week, but the Bengals are going to be able to score a bunch of points. They just put 32 up on the Ravens. And I feel like they're fighting and scratching and clawing to do anything they can to try to take over first place in the AFC North. So to me, I think the run game needs to be another priority this week. I don't care if Josh Allen has 115 passing yards. If it's going to work, it's going to work. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
James Cook is the second best player on this team, and he's got more 100-yard rushing games than anybody else in the league with 7. So what's your thoughts about what the Bills, and we'll wrap up and we'll end on this a little bit, but what's kind of your thought process as the Bills head into they're 8-4. The AFC is wide open. Obviously, I don't know who's good and who's not, who's average, who's better above average. So
Denver should have lost last night. Denver should have lost. Washington had a chance to go for a 2-point conversion. They don't convert. Indy's not great anymore.
Yeah, the NFL is drunk this season. I don't understand. Teams that blow other teams out, a few weeks later lose to really bad teams and vice versa. So
the Panthers.
To me, this game. And I feel like I said this a couple weeks ago, every game here on out is must win because you have to start stacking wins. I think the division is probably out of reach, but you need to just keep distance between the teams like the Texans and the teams that are trying to bite at your heels.
Yeah.
Sneak in that wild card spot. So against the Bengals, a desperate team, that brought Joe Burrow back from, I thought he was going to be done for the season, especially when the record that they had, but he's back. They beat the Ravens. In a couple weeks, if they're winning games, they might be right in it to win the AFC North, and they might win that division at 9-8.
Yeah.
Hopefully not, because that would mean they beat the Bills. But so what do you think the Bills need to do this Sunday? Because the Bills' history, Josh Allen's history against the Bengals has not been great. Obviously, the stuff happened with Damar Hamlin. Obviously, the playoff loss. The Bills just seemingly don't match up well against the Bengals. And now this is a different year. I get that. So what's your thoughts on what the Bills' number one priority should be going into this Sunday? It's at home against the Bengals.
Well, you mentioned the Bengals, Dave, right? The Bengals have 8 losses right now. So this is basically they're in a 1-game season type of thing because they can't. 9-8 is not going to get them a wild card spot. Just based off, I think you have to get to, in my opinion, you have to get to 10 wins to get a wild card spot. And there's going to be a 10-win team that might not make the playoffs. It could be the Chiefs. It could be Houston, right? It could be the Bills, potentially, hopefully not. But there's going to be a 10-win team that I think doesn't make the playoffs in the wild card. So since he's only real track to the postseason is the division, they're not going to win the division 8-9. I would be utterly shocked if they won the division at 8-9. So they're in a 1-game season. So you could chalk this up to Bengals lose Sunday. It's a long road for them to even sniff the postseason. So they're going to be a desperate team. They're also really bad at stopping the run. They're the second worst team in the National Football League at rushing yards allowed per game. The only worst team is the Giants. So the Bills, I would assume, would have a similar recipe. But then you also factor into the fact that, and I mentioned it, I tweeted a couple days before the Pittsburgh game, didn't really come to fruition. Cincinnati's pass defense is atrocious too.
Yeah.
So they're not good against the run. They're not good against the pass. So the Bills offensively should be able to have their way with Cincy. I would assume at this point they would stick to the run game. I don't know if it's 50 carries, but I would if I had to bet and had to guess, it would be a similar recipe to what they did against Pittsburgh. Obviously, they're going to want to throw the ball a little bit more because what do they have? 123 yards through the air. They need to be better passing the ball. That's pretty obvious. But I would expect Dave a similar style game. Rushing the ball with Cook and Davis. Allen using his legs. It was the first time we saw Allen use his legs a ton. He used you about that. We mentioned that a month ago. I think we talked about a show. Allen hasn't really used his legs. He had 8 turns yesterday.
Yeah, and it wasn't my concern.
They weren't a lot of design. There was only 1 or 2 maybe design runs that I kind of can remember off the top of my head.
A lot of it was Josh just kind of getting out of the mud of that.
Yeah, trying to make a play.
Yeah, and my concern earlier in the season was I'm never going to sit here and say that Josh Allen has lost a step or he's got to his ceiling or it's to the point where he's not going to continue to do the things that Josh Allen does where, scramble drills and he's making 15 guys miss before he throws a pass 40 yards downfield or the sideline stuff. Any of that magical Josh Allen putting the cape on, avoiding negative play stuff. But it seemed like he was not able to avoid the stuff that he was used to avoiding. It seemed like the guys were getting to him a lot easier than they would in previous seasons. Now, I know that's saying a lot because you can't expect Josh Allen or any quarterback to be in a pocket, run around, and make magic all the time. Like, I feel like Josh is one of one when it comes to that. But yesterday reminded me that he still can do that when he wants to do that. I don't know if it's what's going on with the play calling. I don't know if he's not trying to do that because the receivers he knows are not coming back to the ball and running the off script scramble drill like in years past. But it was nice to see. I shouldn't say it's nice to see because obviously it meant that there was some offensive line breakdowns, but it was good to see Josh as mobile as he was. And I got to say this too, like when he scored that touchdown, yes, it was the record-breaking touchdown for quarterbacks for rushing. His passion after that play. Now, we don't know what happens in these scrums, right? When the offense is out there and Josh is getting tackled and there's piles and all the arguments ensue. And we can talk about the Cam Hayward stuff if we want to, but it was nice to see Josh after that touchdown. He was very visibly like angry, but it was angry in a good way. It was like, all right, we've accomplished something. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
I like that, Josh. I like all the GIFs that are out there online of him yelling on the sideline and stuff like that, because that's when I feel like Josh Allen he goes into that Superman mode. It's like, we need that Josh Allen for 4 quarters. We don't need it after he gets hit, which was a late hit and a penalty, if you're asking me on that one when he slid on the sideline. Well, let me ask you this too. I want to ask you this. So I think it was Alec Anderson or Ryan Vandermark said post game that after Josh got hit when he was sliding by Patrick Queen, it lit a fire under the team. How do you feel about that? Because that was not at the beginning of the game. Like, it happened as the game was progressing through, and you know what I'm saying? Like, don't you want your guys to be fired up coming out of the locker room? Like, with that intensity?
I would say so. That's my opinion, would be, why aren't you not fired up as soon as the kickoff starts or the first snap is played? So whatever side of the ball you play on, you should be fired up to go. And to be fair, I think the defense was fired up.
Yeah.
Defense was ready to go for 4 quarters, give up 7 points. Offensively, they were not ready to go, but Josh always mentions that he needs to get hit once, and then he's kind of ready to go, or he likes to get hit once. Maybe it's a lot of nothing. I don't love that they weren't like fully ready to go, but look, whatever works, I guess. But I don't love the fact that you needed your quarterback to get absolutely popped, sliding on a dirty hit for you to wake up. But maybe, I don't know, like Alec Anderson, like, he didn't have any full starts after Josh Allen got hit late. So is that what Alec Anderson's always been the guy. Obviously, he's been that extra O lineman at times. Not as much this year because they use Jackson Hawes in that, which is obviously more valuable because Jackson Hawes is way better pass catcher than obviously Alec Anderson is. So it should add another dimension to the offense. But he's always been the guy in like pushing guys, getting in fights, getting in scuffles, and you're like, well, this guy's like the backup right tackle, and he's always getting in scuffles. So I get it. I guess it makes sense for Alec Anderson. I don't love it that you need your star quarterback to get hit late on the sideline for you to get fired up. But I guess you should always be fired up, but they're humans, and maybe they needed something, right? Like, their offense was, the thing is, maybe they were fired up. Their stuff was not working. They were not functioning like offensively, and they needed something like, okay, guys, like let's now we got to figure something out here because they just hit our quarterback late. They're dominating us on that side of the ball. It can't happen anymore. And it still took until the second half to really, outside of the drive, then the first half that led to a field goal, outside of the false start. Took a while for the offense to obviously eventually get going, and they did, especially on the ground. But you don't love that they needed that, but whatever works, I guess. And to be fair, that was a late hit on Patrick Queen. There wasn't the most dirtiest hit I've ever seen, but that was a pretty obvious 15-yard penalty.
Yeah, Josh Allen had totally given up on the play. He was on the ground sliding, like,
and you see a lot worse called. Not a lot a lot worse in the sense of not worse hits, but like quarterback barely goes down and the guy just like kind of like breezes by him and they call it 15 yards. So that was tough.
All right, so we'll kind of wrap it up on this. Outlook for the Bills for the rest of the season? Obviously, 8-4 now.
Yeah.
5 games left. I think, like you said, I think 11 probably guarantees at this point a playoff spot. I don't like how there's just that log jam right behind the Bills, because the Texans have the head-to-head. The Bills have the head-to-head over the Chiefs, which is good. So it's going to be really interesting. So what's your outlook going forward? What did yesterday do to kind of get the bad taste out of everybody's mouth from the Thursday night Texans loss? Like, what's your thoughts? And then kind of like, give me one quick key to kind of help this Bills team get successful and get some wins down the stretch here.
Yeah, I think 11 wins definitely gets you in. I think if you look at some tiebreakers and some like the playoff predictor, 10 wins for the Bills might get them in probably gets them in as well, just based off how things fall. And the good thing is that there's 3 AFC South teams battling for, obviously one's battling for the division. You have the Colts and then you have Houston right outside looking in. They all play each other a couple more times. So the theory is that they beat each other up, right? And one team might just drop out of the playoffs just because they cannibalize themselves. And that obviously will help the Bills. I think you got to get to 10 wins, right? And I think I looked at a couple tiebreakers. Like 10 wins probably guarantees them a spot. I'm not going on a limb and say it's 100% they get in with 10 wins. They're 8-4 with Cleveland and the Jets still on the schedule, right? The Jets game is at the end of the year. They still have Cleveland on the schedule. You would think that's 10. That gets you to 10 right there. But, this Bills team's been a little weird. But you would think that gets you to 10 wins right there. And then the final other 3 games are home against Cincy, at New England, and then home against Philly. So 2 of those 3 games are in Buffalo. And then you never know what that New England game is if New England drops a game before. I don't know who. I know New England plays the Giants tonight, who stink at football.
They got a bye next week, I think.
And then do they play the Bills after that?
Yeah, they play the Bills off their bye.
So, and then they play Baltimore. So the Patriots, look, they're going to have to, the Bills obviously, if they want to win the division, have to beat the Patriots, right? Like that's obviously what they have to do. And then if the Patriots have to either lose to the Giants and then after the Bills, they go to Baltimore, the Jets, and the Dolphins. So I don't know what the tiebreaker is if we both finish with 4 losses, right? Like if the Bills run the table, go 13-4, Patriots lose to the Bills and then lose to Baltimore, and we're both 13-4. I don't know who has the tiebreaker. I want to say New England does because it would be the division record. They have to lose. They have to lose to the Dolphins or Jets. Obviously, the Bills need to beat them, but they have to. So obviously, a Dolphins or a Jets loss is more important than the Baltimore.
Right.
Loss. They can lose to both if they wanted to. So
right.
The division, and look, they lose tonight, then obviously it's a little bit different conversation. I don't expect them to lose tonight, but we know how it is. It's the NFL, and it's a week-to-week league. I agree with you, Dave. I think the division's probably out of reach at the moment, but it can be brought back in. Like if you run the table and you beat Cincinnati next week, and you beat New England in a couple weeks, then there's an outside shot looking in if New England drops a game or 2, and you obviously run the table. But I'm not going to put my stock in that until after the New England game, until whatever happens in that New England game.
And you know what's crazy is somebody pointed this out to me yesterday that every other year the Bills win 13. On an odd year, they win 11. And you can go all the way back to 2020. They won 13. Year. 21, they won 11. 22, they won 13. 23, they won 11. Last year, they won 13. So, hey, if they finish 11-6, that they're probably in the postseason. And
I would be shocked if they're not in the postseason at 11-6. I think 10-7 gets you in. I'm pretty.
At this point,
confident in that.
At this point, in the wild card, the Bills, unless they, like you said, unless the Bills run the table, and New England stumbles a couple times, and the Bills beat New England, the Bills are just playing to get into the dance.
You can't talk about the division until after the New England game, in my opinion. And that includes Bills beating Cincy. Right? Look, if the Patriots lose to the Giants tonight, then I guess you can talk about it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
But assuming the Patriots take care of business tonight, you can't talk about the division until the Bills beat the Bengals, if they beat the Bengals, and then after the Patriots game, whatever that result is. Obviously, if it's a loss, it's over. If it's a win, then you can talk yourself into 3 games left, seeing Patriots potentially stumble. But also to answer your other question, what does the Bills need to do kind of to guarantee a playoff spot?
Yeah.
I would say twofold. Defensively, Christian Bedford needs to keep playing like a lockdown corner. I know there's been some criticism of him online about his kind. He's been a little bit up and down, but like he was terrific last night. Like 10-man coverage reps against DK, no completions allowed. I'm going to spit some stats at you. Like 23 coverage snaps, 0 yards allowed, 0 passing rating allowed, had an interception, picked up a fumble for a touchdown. Like he was very good last night. He was like the corner that we've seen for most of the year, but there's been a couple other games. And then a couple games where he's been a little bit up and down. On the other side, 𝐷𝐿'N Kincaid. Obviously, Spencer Brown and Dion Dawkins need to get healthy, right? Those guys are obviously crucial to the Bills' success. 𝐷𝐿'N Kincaid needs to be healthy because I don't have the stats in front of me, but the Bills' offense with and without him they're glaring differences in their passing game. It's night and day. And I'm not saying you get 𝐷𝐿'N Kincaid and automatically you're a top 5 passing team, because I don't think this Bills team can be a top 5 passing team this year. You get 𝐷𝐿'N Kincaid, I think you can kind of go back to what we've seen a couple times this year when the Bills actually can throw the ball through the air and can move the sticks on 3rd and long. Until you get 𝐷𝐿'N Kincaid back, this passing game, I think, is going to be a shell of itself. So I know he was questionable heading into Sunday. He was kind of a game-time decision, ended up not playing. Dave, I would expect him to play Sunday against Cincinnati. I'm not a doctor over here, but it sounds like he's trending towards that way.
The Bills didn't have their 2 best pass catchers. They didn't have, Shakir, I should say that, but the Bills didn't have their best outside receiver, and the Bills didn't have their best pass catching tight end, which is probably the best pass catcher on the team in Kincaid and Palmer. And those guys went through the pregame warmups, and I 100% expect them, unless something happens, knock on wood, throughout this week of practice. I expect them to be getting treatment right now. They're in Buffalo. They don't have to travel. So they have to play on Sunday. And that would definitely help open up this playbook a little bit more. Kincaid hasn't played in a while. And I think that he was becoming Josh Allen's favorite target. I really do. I don't think it's Shakir. I think it's 𝐷𝐿'N Kincaid has proven that when he's there, Josh has hit him on some really big plays and some really important plays. That Chiefs game stands out to me, that when he needed plays, he went to Kincaid and he got them. So I'm hoping that the Bills not only get 𝐷𝐿'N Kincaid and Joshua Palmer back, but they also get Spencer Brown and Dion Dawkins back, because I feel like
Dion was in concussion protocol, so I assume he's coming back.
Right. I'm hoping so. Spencer Brown, I don't know. He's got a whole bunch of ailments. You know, his arm.
That seemed like a potential IR candidate.
Yeah, so it could be that they're rolling out Ryan Vandemark at right tackle, and he just needs to play the next man up, right? He needs to play the way he did yesterday. So, anything else before we get out of here, Peter? Just predicting the Bills win on Sunday.
Just maybe be a little bit better through the air passing the ball, please. So I don't get I was joking yesterday, it's like watching 1945 football. Never watched really 1945, but it feels like it would be like if I was watching 1945 football. Like the Bills, mainly in the first half, couldn't throw the ball. And even in the second half, couldn't throw the ball past 8 yards. Outside of 1 or 2 plays, 1 to Knox and then 1 to Brandon Cooks in the first half. It's kind of crazy to what this offense through the air has become. So.
Well, it's kind of sad too. Yesterday, I was watching a lot of the games yesterday and watching teams with below average quarterback play or backups playing, running a bunch of play action to put their quarterback in a position to be successful when they don't have the You know what I'm saying? You have Josh Allen and you're handcuffing him by making him drop back and wait for these guys to get open in these long developing routes, and the pass rush the pass protection's not holding up, and he's running around, and then everybody gets mad that Josh is bailing on pockets. Well, it's because he has to, because you got routes that take 4 or 5 seconds to develop, and then the guys don't get separation. So it's crazy watching teams yesterday take a below average or a backup quarterback and run them in play action to get them on the move, to have them be more successful in a high percentage pass, running across the field with receivers running across the field and trying to make things happen. It's frustrating that Joe Brady doesn't think that he has a guy who just scored his 76th regular season rushing touchdown, is as mobile as Josh is, doesn't run a whole bunch of play action, especially when the run game is really working. That's when you can start pushing the play action, and it's frustrating. So I think that's going to take care of our show for today. Thank you to everybody that's watching. Thank you, Peter. We will see you again next week. I am Dave Myers, owner and founder of Built in Buffalo. Peter, let me get a Go Bills, and then we're going to get out of here, man.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.